Hi everybody, my name's Leichtenschlag, and I'm here with you today to talk about AdMob getting started on Android. So first we're going to talk about the prerequisites, run through a fundamentals example, talk about how we can implement AdMob through XML, then discuss the different ad formats available in the AdMob SDK, talk about the different ad request options you have when making a request, listening for ad events, so you know when ads are being presented and clicked in your mobile applications, as well as discuss mediation and custom events. So let's get started. Before running through this code lab, there are some prerequisites. You should have the Android SDK installed with the latest system image 4.2.0 from the SDK manager. For a development environment, this code lab will use Eclipse, but you can also use IntelliJ if you prefer. You're going to need to download the AdMob SDK sample project from our Google Mobile Dev code project, as well as the AdMob SDK from our docs. And it's great if you've read the Android AdMob docs. If not, we'll go through it in this code lab. And also, you can optionally sign up and create an AdMob publisher account. If you don't do that, then we will provide sample IDs for you to use when testing. So now we're going to start with running the fundamentals example. The first thing we're going to do is import our project into Eclipse. Import as an Android project from existing code. You should have downloaded this already. And then we're going to add the Google AdMob SDK jar because it's not included in the sample project. We're going to set our project.properties file to point to the latest Android version, so we compile against the latest Android version. We're going to replace the add unit ID with this sample add unit ID or an add unit ID that you had previously created when setting up your AdMob publisher account. And these 4 steps will get us to be able to run the fundamentals example. So I'm going to switch over to our Eclipse and try to follow these steps to run the project. So the first thing we're going to want to do is go to File, New, Project, Android project from existing code, and browse and find the code lab that we have. I have it saved on my desktop here, and import it. So there are a couple of compile errors. One of them is that we don't have the SDK installed, so we're going to create a new folder and label it libs. And then we're going to go grab the AdMob SDK jar. The latest version right now is 6.2.1. I have this on my desktop, and I'm just going to add it right into the project, into libs. By adding the SDK into libs, it'll automatically get bundled up when I run my project. So that should resolve most of the compile errors. We're also going to want to fix up project.properties to point to Android 17. That'll change this Android 4.0.3 to compile against Android 4.2. And finally, we're going to fix the add unit ID. So let's just go in and copy the sample add unit ID here. Stick it in as a string to our project. And we should be good to go. So let's try running this project and see what we get. I'm going to run it on a Galaxy Nexus Jelly Bean emulator. I believe this emulator is not working, so I'm going to quit this one. And we're going to try to run it on this other emulator. So the app should be starting up, just a basic project, hello world, and we should see a banner coming in here, and yes we do. So this is the AdMob test ad. So that's all it really takes to get started with this sample project. Now let's go back and see kind of what we did here to get started. So this is what the sample project should look like. So there are 2 components here that are different from the standard Android project if you were just to create a basic project yourself. Part of this is altering the manifest. The important things to note here are the com.google.ads.add activity required for the AdMob ad to be shown, as well as with the proper config changes displayed here. AdMob also requires 2 permissions, the internet permission here of course, to get the ads, as well as accessing the network state to see if internet's enabled. In the sample activity, there's only 4 lines needed to create this banner. All we're doing here is creating an ad view. The ad view extends from view. It's just an ad object view. We're passing in the activity context, an ad size. In this case, we're doing a 320 by 50 banner, and our sample ad unit ID. The next line of code shows us grabbing the linear layout from our sample XML file. This is assuming that we have a linear layout in XML with ID, linear layout here. And we're just going to add the ad view to the linear layout. Then we're going to create an ad request, just a new ad request. Here below this, we're adding a test device. This is saying, hey, give me test ads on all emulators. So that's why we see the test ad on the emulator here, because we're running emulator, not a device. And then we're just going to load an ad with this ad request. So that's all it takes to get started. And you can see that we have the ad here. So there's 2 different ways to implement AdMob. I showed you how to set it up in code. Now we're going to walk through how to set it up in XML. So you can actually add a com.google.ads.add view in XML without any Java code. In your XML, just specify the com.google.ads.add view, provide the ads namespace, and the important properties here are the ad unit ID as well as the ad size. Optionally, we have the test devices. Here I'm specifying the test emulator again. You can also specify an ID, test device ID, to get test ads on your device. We'll talk about this more later. This is just a dummy device ID. Test ads will be whitelisted on your device only. So only the specific device that you pass in the ID for will get test ads. Finally, this last option here says load an ad request in the onCreate method. This prevents you from having to grab the ad view in code from the XML and call load ad with a new request. It'll do it for you. So let's just copy this XML implementation and try it out in our app. The first thing I'm going to do is comment out all the code as a proof of concept to show that no code is necessary. And I'm going to hop into res layout main.xml. Looks like we already have a sample implementation here. I'll just comment this out. And we're going to run our project again. So we're waiting for the project to be uploaded to the emulator. And we loaded it up again. We get a hello world. And we get our test ad. The difference here is that this was actually a smart banner test ad. And we'll kind of talk about this more later. There are different ad formats. This one here is shown as a smart banner. So now that I just showed you about Smart Banner, let's talk about some of the other ad formats. From the code, we saw the standard banner. This is available on phones and tablets. The other format that's also available on phones is the Smart Banner. The Smart Banner actually takes up the full width of the screen. That's why you actually saw the test ad here. It took up the entire width of the screen, whereas the test ad we saw earlier in the program was only 320 by 50, did not take up the full width. Some of the other tablet formats that we offer are 300 by 250 rectangle, 480 by 60 banner, as well as a 728 by 90 leaderboard. So the Smart Banner behaves with full width, and its height is dependent on the height of the device. So generally for phones in portrait mode, the height will be 50 pixels, and in landscape it'll be 32. And for tablets, it'll be both 90 pixels in both portrait and landscape. So these are the different formats that AdMob offers. Let's talk about some of the different ad request options in the ad request class. So we talked about test mode already. Ad request.addTestDevice with the test emulator gets you test ads on all emulators. You can also call addTestDevice with specific device IDs. AdMob will hash your device ID and print it in the logcat output. So if you want to get a test ad on your text test Galaxy Nexus device, you would run the app without any test device in there. The logs would say this message: to get test ads on this device, call add_request.addTestDevice with some hashed ID. If you provide this hashed ID in your code, you'll then get test ads on your device. As I mentioned before, this is only, you whitelist this specific device for test ads. All other devices will get live ads, so it is safe to release your app with this in here. We prevent you from shooting yourself in the foot. There are other targeting options that AdMob provides. You have the ability to set the gender on the ad request. You can set location using a suitable location strategy in Android. AdMob recommends that you don't provide location unless your app already uses it, maybe as a Maps application, for example. Providing location requires that you add additional permissions in your app, and if those aren't required by your app alone, then it's not worth it to add it in the ad request. You can also set the birthday, user's birthday if you have it on the ad request, as well as set the background color and text colors on the ads. And this is this targeting option I'll walk through here. So we're going to try to change the background color to blue and the text color to yellow by creating a new AdMob Adapter extras and adding these extras to our class. So this actually needs to be done in code. So I'm going to comment out the XML implementation. We'll hop back to our code. And on the ad request, I'm going to set network extras with the new AdMob Adapter extras and set the color background to blue and the color text to yellow. I'm also going to change the ad size to Smart Banner because this will produce a text ad. The colors only work on text ads. Image ads will remain the same. So since I'm expecting the Smart Banner to be a text ad, we can see the different colors. So we're loading the new version of the app to the Galaxy Nexus emulator, and we get our hello world again, and we get our full width test ad. And as you can see, it's got a blue background and yellow text. The ability to do this lets you customize the ad so that it looks better with your app. If your app has a purple background and yellow text, for example, you can make your ad with a purple background and yellow text, and it'll seem more integrated, and overall it's just a better user experience. So that's it for targeting on the ad request. Let's talk about some of the ad events, which are very important when implementing AdMob. The AdListener class in the AdMob SDK has 5 events. OnReceiveAd callback lets you know when AdMob has received an ad and is about to present it on the screen. You can perform any necessary logic you need to do in your app when this happens. AdMob also has onFailedToReceiveAd. This happens when AdMob can't receive an ad for your ad request. There are many reasons that this could happen. One could be no internet. The phone that you're running on doesn't have internet access, and so we can't fetch an ad. If you put in your publisher ID incorrectly, you might have an invalid ad request. Sometimes AdMob just doesn't have enough inventory and can't fill the ad request. In this case, you will get the onFailedToReceiveAd notification. Just as important are onPresentScreen and onDismissScreen. OnPresentScreen will get called when the user clicks on your ad and is about to exit your app and go to some overlay or the Google Play Store. If you have a game, for example, and you might want to pause the game when the user clicks on an ad, right before we leave your app, we'll let you execute anything in onPresentScreen to take care of this. Similarly, onDismissScreen is invoked when the user comes back to your app after clicking on the ad. And so maybe you can resume the game or put up some menus saying, hey, would you like to continue the game when coming back to your app from an ad request click. Finally, onLeaveApplication is very similar to onPresentScreen. It just means you're actually leaving the application versus presenting an overlay. So if you were just presenting an overlay, if the ad presented an overlay on top of the app, then you would see onPresentScreen being invoked, and onLeaveApplication would not be invoked. So they have pretty similar functionalities. onPresent screen should be called every time onLeaveApplication is called, and is probably the safer bet if you're kind of trying to do some pause functionality or something. So this is what is contained in the AdListener. Let's try to implement this AdListener interface in our app. There are two things to do here. First, we're going to have our banner sample activity implement the AdListener and implement those 5 methods. And the next important piece is to tell the ad view to listen for these events. So the ad view that we created in code, we're going to tell it to listen to the AdListener from the banner sample class. I have a sample interface implementation here, so I'm going to copy this into the app. It just presents toast messages, so we can see little pop-ups in the app. So the first thing I'm going to do here is have my class implement AdListener. Implements. And we're going to want to, on our ad view, set AdListener with this class. Looks like we didn't get all of our methods here, so I'm going to recopy them. Seem to have a quick compile error that I'm going to fix here. All right, it seems like copying from the presentation is causing some issues. So I'm going to try to roll my own here. We'll just copy one toast message. And we'll make this on dismiss screen. On failed to receive ad. On leave application. On present screen, and finally on receive ad. So let's run our app here, and we should see these toast messages as the ads come in. So when we receive our ad, we'll get this onReceivedAd toast message. Let's try clicking the ad this time, and we should see on present screen. So it looks like it's presenting an overlay here. I take that back. We get on leave application, which means it's actually going to the external web browser. And as we come back to the app, we should get an on dismiss screen callback. So if I had failed to receive an ad, I would get this on failed to receive callback. So you'll want to override these methods and implement them as your app sees fit. The final thing we're going to talk about today is AdMob Mediation. AdMob Mediation is a feature that was added a few versions ago in our SDK. It allows you to request ads from other ad networks using the AdMob SDK interface. So if you had already signed up on AdMob.com and created a publisher account, you could also create a mediation placement on mediation.admob.com. Here you can, when you create a mediation placement, you can specify which ad networks you want to mediate with. In this case, we have the AdMob network and AdMob house ads. both set up to serve 50% of the time. So 50% of the time I'll get an AdMob ad, 50% of the time I'll get an AdMob house ad. And there's actually no additional code required to set up mediation. All that you do is you replace your AdMob publisher ID with the mediation placement ID. So I already have this ID set up to serve 50% AdMob, 50% house ads. Let's try putting that in. We're going to go back to a banner request because we set up the mediation placement to serve banners. And let's try running the app again. So we're running the app, we get our hello world. It's making a mediation request, coming back with a config, and it looks like it chose AdMob this time. And it displayed an AdMob house ad, or an AdMob network ad, but it's a test ad since we specified testing devices. I'll leave this as an exercise to you all to set up your own mediation placement and see if you can get house ads using this method. I should also note that with mediation you can set up other ad networks. All you need to do is include the other ad network's SDK and adapter code libraries into your app and set them up to serve a percentage of the time using your mediation placement, and you should be able to see ads from other networks as well without having to integrate with their APIs. Another powerful feature is custom events. AdMob already supports about 10 or 12 networks, but maybe the ad network that you're interested in using is not directly supported by AdMob. In this case, you can roll your own custom event that can essentially implement one of these ad networks. You can also do something else other than implement an ad network. And in this example, we're just going to create a custom event that just displays the Android icon image as an ad, because we don't currently have another icon in our app. So let me walk through how you would do this. In the AdMob UI, instead of configuring another ad network, you would add a custom event. You would be presented with this pop-up that asks you to include a label, a class name, and a parameter. The label is just a label for your custom event. I called it my custom event. The class name is the fully qualified class name of the class that will implement the custom event. So in this example, we'll use com.google.example.ads.fundamentals.myCustomEvent. And the parameter is any parameter you want to pass to that custom event. For another ad network, that might be an ad unit ID. In our case, for this example, we don't actually need a parameter, so I just presented the hello world screen as the parameter. So let's implement this example custom event class. So here's what it looks like. There are two methods. One is the request banner ad method. In this class, you will want to call out to another ad network or grab some view, and then we're going to call this custom event banner listener and tell it we received an ad and pass in the view of the ad that we got. Generally, when implementing other networks, you're going to request an ad in this method and implement the third-party ad network's ad listener, and when they say that they received an ad, you would call listener.onReceivedAd with their banner. In this example, we're just creating an image view and setting the Android icon as the image resource and calling onReceivedAd with that icon. The other method that you'll implement is the simple destroy method. If you have any cleanup that's necessary, you'll want to implement it in this destroy method. So let's try this out. I already have the proper package here, so I'm going to create a new class called my custom event. I'm going to replace the implementation here with the implementation from the slide. And finally, I'm going to grab the example ad unit ID here for custom events. I set up this event to serve 100% of the time, so we should see it here. So this is our main code. It's going to load the ad view with an ad request. It's going to hit the mediation server, grab a config that says I want to request custom event 100% of the time, the AdMob SDK is going to know from your configuration that you want to call into com.google.example.ads.fundamentals.myCustomEvent and call request banner ad. And here we're just going to return an Android icon. So let's try running the app and see what we get. So we're uploading the app to our Galaxy Nexus emulator, and here we have it. So we got a mediation config that said I want to get a custom event, and we created our image view and set the resource to the icon, and this is kind of like our banner here. You could replace this with a 320 by 50 image and serve custom ads, perhaps as a backfill if no other mediation networks filled the request. So let's make this a little bit more interesting and add an OnClickListener. So we're just going to, when the image view is clicked, send the user to a web browser that goes to www.google.com. This will also hit the listener.onClick, onPresent screen, and onLeave application callbacks. For mediation, the onClick callback lets the AdMob SDK know that the ad has been clicked, and this is used for reporting purposes in the AdMob UI. So let's try running this and seeing if we can click our Android icon. So again, we're fetching a mediation config, calling into the custom event, serving the icon. We got our onReceived ad callback because we notified the mediation layer that we received an ad. And when I click here, we should get the onPresent screen and onLeave application callbacks, hopefully, because we provided them here. It's important to note that when implementing your custom event, you want to send these messages back to AdMob Mediation as much as possible in the right places, because by calling onPresent screen here in your custom event, your main app will be able to listen for it, and AdMob can call custom event here, or call onPresent screen here. If you fail to provide some of these callbacks, then your main app, when a custom event is shown, it won't get those callbacks, and you might not be able to pause your game, and your game might end up being in a bad state. So when implementing your custom event, try to call as many of these listener methods as possible. So just to reiterate, custom events let you implement any ad network within AdMob Mediation. If the adapters aren't working, you can roll your own solution using these custom events. You can implement as many as you want. And you can do something else instead of showing an ad. Like, for example, we showed this icon. And there are some more other use cases that I'll leave as an exercise for you all to figure out what you can do with custom events. So that's it for this code lab. You should be familiar with all of the important parts of AdMob and be able to implement it pretty easily. Here are some more resources in case you need help. Here's the SDK download on our docs page. Here's the AdMob site where you can create an AdMob placement. We have our developer docs, our forum where you can ask us technical questions. You can follow us on our Google Ads Developer Plus page, listen in on our Google Ads Developer blog, check out our code examples, and we have a Google Developer Academy class to help you more with in-depth custom events. So thanks for watching. My name's Leichtenschlag, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.